Hello and welcome to Game Brain. This is a board game podcast about a gaming group, and this is not going to be the usual episode that you would hear. We're not going to have any game review going on right now because we are a podcast about a gaming group. I just want to let you know that we as a group have been talking a lot. We've been talking on Facebook, we've been talking in emails, we've been talking personally about Black Lives Matter and about what is going on right now. In several of our episodes, you've heard us talking about that in little dribs and little drabs. And I'm here right now with the other host of Game Brain, Matthew Robinson. I'm here with...
Hey, Tom.
Hey, good to see you. I'm here with the game pioneer, Jennifer.
Hi.
And I am here with a special guest. We are so honored to have Candice Harris with us. Candice Harris, if you don't know, is one of the newest additions to Board Game Geek. She is a games journalist par excellence, and she has been to our Game Brain game nights several times right before everything fell apart and we stopped having game nights. But Candice, we are so happy to have you here with us today as well.
Guys, thank you. That was an awesome intro. Really appreciative for you guys having me on here. I'm a big fan of the pod.
Thank you. And thank you for all of you for making time for this, Tom and Jennifer and Candice. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad we could do this today.
So let's start off here. Jennifer, you have you've been posting some absolutely amazing pieces on what's going on right now, and you had a particular post on Facebook that really kind of took off, that people started talking about. Will you just fill everybody in on what that was? And that was sort of the starting point for most of this conversation.
You're referring to the Strategicon post?
That is absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay, right. Okay, so I was contacted by Eric Burgess, who is a longtime ally of Strategicon, and he could not get through to Strategicon, to Eric Aldrich, the owner, that the con should make a statement regarding Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
And so I wrote Eric, directly, okay, and said, this is really upsetting. I mean, I was super angry. I was just super, super angry. I'm like, we need to organize a boycott. We need to do something because, we're part of this. And you're just saying, well, we don't get involved with politics. But equal rights is not a political statement.
Right. Now, just for people that don't know, Strategicon is a series of conventions that are hosted in the Los Angeles area. It is not Gen Con. It is not a very large convention. It is a local con, but it is the local con of Los Angeles, and because of that, it is significant, and especially significant to our group.
Yeah, I think it's bigger than you're saying. It's one of the biggest local cons in the country.
Yeah, we're the second largest city in the country, and this is our biggest convention. It happens 4 times a year, and it's an important thing to, I think, pretty much anybody who's in the board game community in Los Angeles. At least it was for me. It was the place that I met Jennifer. It was the place where it was my first board game convention ever, and it's a thing that I greatly look forward to 4 times a year as my main opportunity to game for a huge chunk of time.
3 times a year, Matt. Three times.
3 times a year. Okay, right. Yeah.
I hope it's 4.
It would be nice if it was 4, right? Except that we have a situation now. Candice, I'm going to throw it to you for a second here. When you hear somebody talking about Black Lives Matter and they say, "I don't want to say anything because we don't make a political statement," do you have no problem with that, or does that cause issue?
It causes some issue with me because I agree with Jennifer 100%. Saying Black Lives Matter is not a political statement. The whole purpose is to promote equality, the importance of racial equality in our country. But I also, I was listening to your Madeira episode, and I also agree with Elder that, like, you know, we all have a right to, whether you're in the position of being an influencer or the person that's supporting an organization, everybody has a right to say something or not say something. And then we have a right to respond and, you know, stop supporting them or continue supporting them. So I do agree with that. But like, from the perspective of Jennifer, who's been going to Strategicon and supporting that organization for so many years, and I'm sure
83.
Yeah, since 1983. And I'm sure
Amazing.
and I'm sure she's one of the pioneer African Americans to be a part of that. So it is really kind of hurtful when you reach out to someone and say, hey, I really feel like I need to hear from you on this. And they just kind of refuse and, you know, say nothing at all, which is like, just ignore is part of the problem. Because it's like, we all have to accept that this is a problem. Like, that's the first thing. And I think when it comes to Black Lives Matter, I say that proudly. Obviously, I am Black, you know, but I suspect that some people get caught up on using those exact words, Black Lives Matter, because of the organization, and maybe they have some bad connotation of this organization, which I don't understand. But I think there's still a way you can make a statement without saying Black Lives Matter, but you can say that this is important to us and that diversity and racial justice and equality is important to our organization. And we want everyone to know that, because my company that I work for, a couple days after the George Floyd murder, they hadn't said anything. And all this uproar is happening in the country. And I'm sitting here working and just feeling like I'm not important. Like, I just started feeling really bad vibes. So I actually reached out to the CIO of my company. I said, hey, are you guys planning to issue a statement on this? You know, this is impacting not just me as an African-American employee here, but like everybody. And, you know, and then he eventually got back to me and said, yeah, sorry, you know, we took so long, but they were working on a statement, and they put one out. And it was very heartfelt. You know, they mentioned the horrific events and everything. But they never said Black Lives Matter, and that didn't offend me at all. But the important thing was they put the message out acknowledging that we need to all do better. And yes. I think it's important, like, even if you're afraid to say the words Black Lives Matter, like, to say something.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Agree. And it's, you know, and it just feels like, okay, well, Tom, why don't you talk about the letter that you got back?
Sure. Okay. So I first put this letter to both Matt and to Jennifer to get their input before I spoke for Game Brain. But I wrote the head of Strategicon, and I said, listen, my name is Tom Donnelly. I'm a host of Game Brain. We've been talking about Black Lives Matter, and the fact that Strategicon has chosen to not put out any statement is a statement in this current culture, and certainly in our point of view, that's what we believe. We believe that not making a statement is a statement in and of itself. And I wanted to give him a chance to reply and say that and tell me if they were planning on making a statement of any kind or where they stand on it. And here's Eric's reply. I'll read it verbatim just so there's no funny business. Strategicon is on hiatus until July and has been since the conclusion of GameX on Memorial Day. Yours is the first formal request I've had on the matter. I am not empowered to issue any statement on behalf of the con at this time, nor is anyone else. Strategicon has never, in its 40 years of existence, issued any commentary on any social issue. This is by design. That said, as an individual, I support BLM and its cause and have done so for 30 plus years. long before BLM as a formal movement ever existed. I'd be happy to be interviewed on the subject, but I must stress that I cannot and will not speak for Strategicon. Strategicon is not my personal vehicle to express my views, as some seem to assume it is. It may not be the answer you wanted, but you deserved an answer. Eric. All right, so there's a lot to unpack in there. I'll start by a couple things that gave me some significant pause. The first thing
Can I just say one thing?
Sure,
quickly,
please,
Tom?
by all means.
Look, we're talking specifically about a very niche and small convention in the grand scheme of things. We have an international audience, but I hope this conversation is helpful in terms of how you interact with your own hobby and the people around you in the community right now, because I'm hoping this conversation is one that is useful to everybody, not just, obviously we're specifically talking about Strategicon, and I'm fine singling them out because I think it's worth doing right now. But I also, I just want to make sure people, the goal of this conversation, at least for me, is for white people to take responsibility for making their own gaming communities and their small sections of the world as anti-racist as possible. So that was my goal, at least in being cool with Tom reaching out to Strategicon and facing that. So I just wanted to say that before we move on.
Agreed. Yeah, and from my perspective, the perspective that we don't comment. He didn't say political issue. He said social issue. He said we don't commit any social issue, and at least that's better because he's not trying to make it a political statement and that whole dodge, which to me very much is a dodge. But he did say that this was the first formal request I've had on the matter. Formal request is something that I've seen several times, not just here, but in other places that have decided not to make a statement. They say that we haven't, nobody's formally requested, and that seems like a weasel word to me because Jennifer, prior to me sending this, had you requested that they make a statement?
Well, what happened was Eric Burgess forwarded me the message.
Mm-hmm.
No, wait a minute. Eric sent me an email that said, I've been trying to get him to do this. I forwarded that email as part of my response.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what the heck formal means. What? Dear Mr. Eric, I can't remember his last name, but
Aldrich.
What is he talking about?
Yeah. No,
that didn't make any sense.
No. Then he says that we've never in 40 years made any commentary on any social issue, and this is by design. And
I'd be very surprised if they didn't release some statement after 9/11, wouldn't you?
I would. Yeah, I can't go back and check that.
I don't recall them doing so.
Oh, maybe they didn't. The thing is that this is by design, and what is that design? Why have you decided not to ever comment on any social issue? And the
other thing, the
Mm-hmm.
word social issues.
Yes.
This isn't a social issue.
Mm-hmm.
This is an equality issue.
Mm-hmm.
This is a justice issue. I mean, social issue sounds like you're going to a party or something. No, not a social issue in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't accept that word or his, in my opinion, excuse for trying to weasel out of this. I mean, at the end of the day, we can't force it, right? And so, I think we need to decide, how are we going to move on? What do we want to do with this con, and to tell the audience kind of the direction, what is the core importance to us about the con not doing that, about a con who takes money from people of color, right?
Mm-hmm.
Takes lots of money and volunteer hours, such as myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, nope, we don't care about you, even though there's an obvious problem.
Yeah.
And that's how it makes you feel when they don't make a statement, right? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but does it make you feel the lack of a statement makes you feel uncared for?
Right. I mean,
Absolutely.
It makes us feel, I think me and Candice, taken for granted. Well, of course they're going to show up because they always have.
Yeah, and I mean, my favorite part about Strategicon is the open gaming with my friends, and I can do that for free anywhere at my house. I love the virtual flea market too, but again, that's something that could be coordinated outside of that. And I've met Jennifer at Strategicon also, and just about all of my gamer friends, and I love the event, but I just saying we haven't done something in the past 40 years. Well, this is a whole, this is 2020. This is the first time we've had this worldwide pandemic. Like, people are finally becoming more woke about it. And it's like, we all have to work to make it better. And just by being quiet, it's just been like, okay, we're going to.
I mean, if we want to go to extremes, hell, they had slavery for how many 100 years? And then it was finally over? Just 40 years is nothing. We don't care about your 40 years. This is our moment right now, and you refuse to acknowledge it.
Fact of the matter is that we have a hobby that is predominantly white and predominantly male, and a lot of places, a lot of organizations, a lot of companies give lip service to wanting to broaden the hobby, wanting to make inroads and to expand the hobby, but here's our moment, right? Here is your chance. Right. Here is your chance to do the simplest thing you could possibly do. And then, talk to the other people in the convention, make a statement, right? A simple statement.
Right. And then you look at BGG, right? Now one thing, and this is how kind of Candice got involved. I told Scott Alden 6 months ago that I was not going to watch an all-white game night coming out of Los Angeles. I just said, I am done with that. That's ridiculous. So that's what got Lincoln and Nikki and Rusty, back to the cons, back to seeing who was really out there that wasn't just another white guy, right? Yeah. And you see how they responded. Not only did they add Candice to game night, they got rid of the white male blonde logo. Yes, the logo they replaced it with is hideous, but that's another discussion.
It's not hideous.
It is.
It just makes me want to drink Gatorade.
That's just Jennifer's opinion.
Makes me thirsty.
Candice,
I love the rebranding.
Candice, are you contractually obligated to defend the logo?
That's right.
Okay. Because it is awful. Well, yeah. It is awful.
And I mean, Jennifer, that was longer than 6 months ago, because I've been working with BGG for the past 6 months.
Well, hey girl, I am old. So time all runs together. But maybe it was like a year. In fact, yeah, because they met you in April of 2019.
Right.
So it was probably like December of 2018. But at any rate, you see how they stepped up. Not only did they issue a Black Lives Matter statement, but I think the pages are like 200 and something pages of discussion, and they moderated the heck out of that.
And that wasn't, and just for clarification, that wasn't something me as a Black person had to tell them. Like, Aldi was like on top of that.
Right.
I didn't have to get involved with that at all. It was important, and it was like BGG, to my knowledge, has never made a quote unquote political statement ever. But it's like, hey, it is important right now. It is important.
Right.
And I'm really proud to be a part of that team that steps up to the plate and is not afraid to have people who walk away. And
also not take us for granted, and for understanding, which is what I was telling him. I said, when a person of color, a Black person, comes to your page and sees nothing but white people, you see Rodney and game night and the logo and just more and more white people. Well, unfortunately, in my opinion, white people think they're the default and they forget that they're white. So they don't see what some new Black person might see.
Yeah.
And so it's the same, I suppose Eric feels with the con, well, they can see there's Black people here, but what does that mean? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I thought about it. I mean, I talked with my son, Todd, who's been going to the cons until he left for Seattle since he was 3 years old. His feeling was we couldn't organize a significant enough boycott. And, with elders saying that he wouldn't participate, that won't help. So...
Well, I mean, so what can we do? Because let's say that this is a something that the hobby is certainly trying to grasp with right now, right? Origins Online fell apart because of their foot dragging when it came to this issue. The wargaming part of our hobby has had a grand total of one company, one tiny little mom and pop company that has made a statement about Black Lives Matter. That is Conflict Simulations Limited. I just want to give them a little shout out. They're a tiny little company in Queens, New York, and they are getting a lot of friendly fire from friendly fire. They're getting a lot of flack from people that have bought their games. So if you feel strongly about this, maybe take a look at Conflict Simulations Limited, and if you like war games, maybe see about supporting them, because the biggest board game company that deals in war games, GMT Games, sadly is absolutely and completely silent on this matter. They are the ones that could and should be stepping up and doing something. And
not only are they silent, but the forums that they moderate, and as far as I know, own, you can't say Black Lives Matter.
Yep. And Consim
What
World.
do you mean?
As well.
Why? What do you mean? What happens?
They'll moderate you out.
That's right.
You cannot say Black Lives Matter. They won't permit it.
So, as a white guy, I'm gonna speak to the white guys that are listening, because it's mostly white guys that listen to our podcast. It's mostly white guys that are in this hobby. I think, to me, the biggest change that's happened since the murder of George Floyd is that I no longer feel it's okay just being not racist. I feel that it is my duty and my job to be anti-racist and to call out racism amongst other white people, and to make other white racists feel uncomfortable and unwelcome anywhere that I am. So, I put up a statement very early on saying, Black Lives Matter. And if you have even the slightest problem with this, I ask that you stop listening to our podcast. That's genuinely how I feel. I do not want to have those people in our community. I want the people who would have an issue with that to feel unwelcome. I would want them to feel uncomfortable, and I would want them to have to look inside and question those things. I've experienced a good amount of white supremacy in this hobby. Even on Board Game Geek, I remember I had a very scary interaction with an actual, totally unmasked Nazi on Board Game Geek. I'll just say it, in the forums for Heavy Cardboard, I brought up a question wondering why Francis Tresham, great designer, had said in an interview with Edward, when Edward asked him if he could have dinner with anyone in the world, he said Hitler. And as a Jew, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Okay, maybe he has historical reasons. Maybe he wants to kill Hitler. I don't know. But I said I thought that was weird. And Edward never asked a follow-up question on why Francis Tresham would like to have dinner with Hitler. And as a Jew and as a fan of Francis Tresham, I was curious. And I created that thread. And I was instantly met with an actual Nazi who said, because he loved him, why he wanted to meet with him, because and those were deleted. I wish I had taken screen caps, but this was a fully unmasked Nazi.
Wow.
Well, they are out there. I mean, as you know, on my Facebook page, I post this stuff all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
We see these policemen talking about how they support a civil war against Black people. I mean, we see it. I mean, the thing for me, though, just like getting back to these cons and BGG, you know, what are they doing? We aren't going to get rid of racism. It's just not going to happen. But what we want to know is the places that we're spending our money, do they care about us?
Yep.
Right?
Sure.
And, you know, Keith kind of saying no. Well, one of the things I was thinking of, since it doesn't look, I mean, I don't know if you guys really think we can do a boycott, but I don't think so if Black people are still going to go. That just blows us up. So I was thinking to have Eric let us hand out Black Lives Matter pins, you know, that we could wear and that other people could wear. He's already letting trans people show their pronouns. So can we put out a pin that says Black Lives Matter at the next con?
I think that sounds like a tremendously.
That's the least we could do. Yeah.
I don't see how he'd have a problem.
Great idea.
I mean, or even a large contingent of people showing up in Black Lives Matter T-shirts, or you know, I mean, having a meetup, or just to.
Right. No, because we could do Black Lives Matter T-shirts with Game Brain at the bottom.
Sure, I would happily make a ton of those. So I want to say one last thing to white people who I think when they hear a conversation like this, I can already hear the arguments being, well, why do I have to say the 3 little magic words? So to that, I would say, I really encourage you to learn what Black Lives Matter as an organization stands for. If you think you know what it is, question why you think you know what it is. Who has told you what they stand for? Where have you gotten that information? Go directly to the source. Go to their website and read. They have a wonderful Who We Are section that explains all the policies they stand for, all of the actions they are trying to take. And as Jennifer pointed out to me, they're not a political organization. They do not endorse candidates. So, but beyond that, find out what they stand for. And I welcome you to decide then for yourself if those quote unquote 3 little magic words somehow are a contract that you've now signed with a political organization. And if that is more important to you than having a heartfelt reaction to whether you watched the video of George Floyd die or you've just had your eyes open and watched the news since the day you were born and haven't had an emotional response to what is clearly a massive epidemic of Black people being murdered in public by law enforcement.
And have been forever.
Yep.
It just hasn't been talked about. It just hasn't been acknowledged.
Right. A little while ago, I posted back in the 40s where Black people were protesting against police brutality. And the previous 2 riots in LA, police brutality, you know?
I mean, it's a similar situation to what happened with Me Too a couple of years ago. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew that this was going on. Some people didn't know the extent to which perhaps they were a little ignorant. But it was something that was vast, and with the father of a daughter, I am very, very hopeful, and I literally hope every day that movement and this movement both continue forward. Because if they're able to truly make a change in the way we talk about these issues and the way we do not push them under the rug anymore. What a better world, what a better society we can leave for that next generation.
Right. The other thing too, guys, and folks, everybody, be open to questions from people who are unsure. Mm-hmm. Don't just jump on them. How dare you ask why Black Lives Matter? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To say, we understand, because white supremacy is like braided into the United States of America, that many things that you don't even realize are supremacist are actually supremacists. White people think they're the default, that, everybody knows if I'm talking about some person I haven't named the race of versus some person I have named the race of, well, the other person must be white, right? Because white people have a problem with accepting that they're white. What I would urge everybody to do, including, us here, spend a day, just every time you see a white person, say, that person's white, and see how you feel.
It was only this year that Crayola changed the beige color from flesh tone, which to, I mean, that happened this year. That was like 2020.
Hosiery is still nude.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So just kind of, hey, on that commercial, why did they choose a white man on that commercial? Maybe they had reasons. Maybe, again, you see how that gets ingrained. We expect a white person to speak authoritatively. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And if they put a black person down, that's a token. That's a token.
Yeah. Or just how most novelists only ever mention the race when it's not a white person.
Right.
I was just in a writers' conference where that was brought up, where somebody said, "What if I just don't mention the race of my characters?" And the consensus among the novelists were, the unfortunate fact is that if you don't mention it, everyone is going to picture a white person.
Right.
Even black people are going to picture a white person. We have been conditioned to do this. And that's why we are not a race-blind society, and we never have been, and we may not for a very, very, very long time.
Well, in some ways, though, it's just like culture, right? You go to Mexico, you go to France, you go to these different places, or you go to China. Well, not only do they look different, but they have a different culture. We don't all want to become white culture. Yes? I don't like humus very much. You guys like humus.
Oh. So let's find what last things we want to say about this. I'll even start to people like the people that are running Strategicon, to the game companies, to the game designers out there that feel like making no statement is the best course of action. I want to urge you to really reconsider. I'm not saying exactly what you have to say. I do not want virtue signaling. I do not want, like we said in the last episode, I do not want to hear false performative words. But everybody out there, you don't mind that? Are you okay with that?
No, because what it does is it lets the racists understand that their thoughts are not universal. So everyone knows that Amazon does not care about Black Lives Matter, right? I mean, they don't care about their workers. How are they going to care about Black people? But when they say it, then that racist somewhere else says, oh, okay, well, they're not part of what we're about, right?
Gotcha.
And I think that's really important. I just think it's important, even if you don't mean it, to just go ahead and pretend like you do.
Gotcha. Okay, I respect that opinion because what you're doing is you're even if it's not sincere, you're still amplifying a good thing. I got it. Okay. My statement is this to all of these companies out there: silence in this case is not what you think it is. It is no longer a security blanket. It is no longer protecting you. What you're doing is you are coming down on a side that I don't think you want to be on. I really don't think the majority of these companies and the majority of these organizations that are doing this, I don't think most of them, I think that they are cowards. I do not think that they are malicious. and I want them to
Some
step
are.
out. I'm not saying none.
Yep.
I'm not saying none. I'm definitely not saying none. When I dove down the rabbit hole of Consim World and John Krantz preparing for this, I was blown away by what I saw there. So I definitely know that it is out there. But no, I'm talking to the more reasonable people that think that this is just a storm we can weather and sit out. And I'm urging you not to. Not just because it's not a good political calculation or a good monetary calculation, but because you are standing on the sidelines of something truly revolutionary that you're going to want at some point in your life to be a part of.
Yeah.
Should we get all the white dudes out of the way?
No, Candice, yeah, absolutely.
No, I was just gonna say I completely agree, and kind of going off on that note, like I think that, again, you don't have to necessarily have the words Black Lives Matter in your exact statement that you put out. There are so many ways that you can express that you want to do something about this issue and that you're aware of it and you're acknowledging it without saying those exact words. And it's just really important this day and age. And I really also, to kind of close out here, I love your idea, Jennifer, about us not necessarily boycotting Strategicon, but instead let's show up let's wear our Black Lives Matter t-shirts, let's be proud and all support each other and just try to, continue to make the hobby, the gaming community more inclusive and just continue to improve diversity.
Yep, and to let new people too know that, we will keep you safe, right?
Absolutely.
We will keep you safe, whether you be trans, gay, Black, Asian, Hispanic, we will keep you safe.
Yep.
Super important.
Well, so I'll jump in. We're clearly at a watershed moment here where silence is a choice. Anybody who wants to take the stand of we don't make political statements, we don't blah, 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 your head is in the sand. You're pretending that reality is different than what it is. The reality of this moment is when gushers and Skittles are making Black Lives Matter statements, something has changed. NASCAR is banning. Yeah, sorry guys, the moment has changed. We do not live in we do not make political moments anymore. And unless you are wildly unconnected to the world around us and live under a rock, your silence is deafening. You are making a choice, and I'm watching, and I'm glad that you're making that choice because sunlight is the best disinfectant. I now know who you are, and I know where I want to spend my money, my attention, and my time. And in future purchases, I'm going back to your Twitter feed and I'm going to look in June and May of 2020 and see where you were at because I want to know. Because if you didn't say something, you said something very loud indeed. And I'm glad we had this moment. I'm glad that we're seeing, I'm speaking about the board game community only. I'm glad this moment has hit the board game community and we're able to say who this is. Lastly, I will say we quickly spoke on wargaming, but wargaming, you have a racism and white supremacy problem. I enjoy war games. I've been playing war games for a long time, but it is on white people in the wargaming community to weed that out and be anti-racist. And I will say it is on white people. It is on white Americans to solve white American racism. And I encourage white people listening to accept that call to arms and to become anti-racist and take it upon yourself to end it and not be okay with just knowing you're not racist, whatever that means.
It doesn't mean much, at least in some situations.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Guys, thank you very, very much for getting together with us. Jennifer, thank you for so many of the posts, so many of the threads, so many of the comments. You are everywhere right now on this issue, and we, all of us in Game Brain really, really appreciate your not just your statements but your leadership in this matter.
Thank you so much.
And
just credit my parents and my extended family. We've always been like this.
And Candice, thank you so much for coming on. This is your first time on Game Brain. We love you. Every time we
Thanks,
get
guys.
together with you, we're crazier about you. And and thank you for you joining Board Game Geek. We are so happy to have your voice and your presence there.
Thank you so much.
Was there
Yeah.
anything else that anybody wanted to say? Did we cover everything?
I have the email open from my company, and this isn't Board Game Geek. This is my day job company, and I wouldn't mind just like reading this one paragraph from it, just to give you a taste of a message that didn't say Black Lives Matter, but it did say Black Lives Matter. So
Great.
it says one way to make progress toward the end and foster real reform, even at an individual level, is to acknowledge that racism exists and become aware of the subtle and overt ways that people we know experience discrimination. For those fortunate enough to not experience a bias, we encourage you to be open to hearing the stories and challenging your perspective. In the same vein, let's encourage those who have been victims of prejudice to share their stories and encourage others to listen. Let us commit to acting as a beacon of fairness and tolerance for all people.
Okay. That's good. That was well done.
Yeah, I felt good when I got that email, and that's only a part of it, but I felt really good. Like I felt like, hey, these guys care, and I am respected.
And I hope all the people out there who have yet to make statements hear how that statement made you and Jennifer feel, or how the lack of a statement makes you feel. And I hope they really take that to heart and recognize that, these aren't just quote unquote virtue signaling moments. These are statements that carry a huge relief or anxiety if they're not there for people who exist in your communities, who work at your companies, and on and on.
I totally agree with that. I don't think we're going to play our music out. I think we're just going to let that sit and to end on a little bit of silence. Thank you all for participating in this. We really appreciate it. And thank you to all the listeners out there. I know this isn't our usual episode, but we felt it's important. We hope that you find it, that it's important. And if you don't, we hope that you look into maybe why, and to realize that this is a different time than we have lived through in the past. And certainly for our Game Brain family, it is a really important one. Thanks, everybody. And we will talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye.